Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to view Storm of the Century, Episode 3 review. So, uh, of course, I have something that I really liked or really enjoyed, it's kind of difficult to just let it go. Normally, if there's something that's just garbage, it's just like, yeah, good riddance. I'm just gonna stop watching this because I don't even like it anymore. But for this one, like I really enjoyed it, and there's some certain times where I just kind of want to slowly uh, finish it up, just because it's like, I actually enjoy this. So via this third episode, what ends up happening? So within this third episode, the main thing is to find out that Linoge, the thing that he is to go on and want, that he has been talking about for and taunting about for the last two episodes, we find out that Linoge is to mention that he is ill, that he is to at some point die, but that this character is to die in a way that is to be way much more slower than a mortal man. And so this guy, who of course is say that he's ill, that he's dying, but he's going to outlive probably most of the people that are here in this room, in this town. And so Linoge, of course, is to finally admit that he wants an apprentice. He wants someone that he can give his knowledge to and have a son or daughter. So Linoge is to force the town to decide to give in to what he wants, or he's going to murder every single kid, let them all fall to their deaths, and then also to control everyone in town to basically one by one just plop or drop from off the pier and all die by, of course, Linoge's hand. So it seems that we have Mike, out of everyone in this town, who is to immediately be defiant compared to the decisions other people are going to make, trying to really vague this out. So Mike, of course, is to want to immediately go on and say no. And in all honesty, like, considering I don't have a child, so like I don't have much skin in that game. But I would honestly take the no route also, cause in my brain, I would think of this as like a snowball effect. If you go on and you say yes to this person, you have kind of already given in to this person, so much so that you'll never go on and say no to this person again, because they already like got one thing on you, and so that will just snowball into just like, well, like, you know what I was saying before, like, if you give me what I want, I'll go away, but you know what, like, I don't want to just go away right away. I want to go on and I want to put my boots up and I want some hot cocoa and I want to maybe like kill a bunch of people, and then you know what? Like, I think after that, after I've kind of just tired myself out, then I think I'll leave. Maybe. Um because like the going away thing, there was never a date of when I was gonna go away. I know I kind of signed that paperwork and dotted those T's quite often, but, you know, I can always go back on that, right? So, yeah, like, plus, when really thinking about it, like, what if saying yes to this person is a bad thing? this guy is consistently taunting everybody about, like, when in sin, come on in. And we also had Linoge, who was straight up telling Mike that a bunch of the people that are in his town all have sin. And he starts rattling off all these uh, uh, naming things about everybody. It's like, oh yeah, all your people are con artists and this and that. And Mike is just like, well, yeah, but like, they're all gonna stand up against you. They're all gonna not give in to you, because we won't give in. And it's like, well, we'll see about that. We'll see about that, Mike. So, with that said, let's go on and let's talk and go into spoilers about this last episode, because there's a lot technically going on. There's a whole like epilogue where we have to go on and mention what happens to a bunch of people in the town. Some of them end up getting remarried, some of them end up getting dead, and some of them kind of leave a previous relationship that they were in to basically just decide, like, well, hey, like, I want my own peace of mind, and like that's good enough for me, um, to get away from that town that had possibly cost me so much. So with that said, let's go on into the double five. It's about that time. Let's go into, of course, what is spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time we can spoil this episode. So, in the very beginning of it, we are to figure out what happened to Ralphie as he went into that closet and he was hearing some whispers, some talking. So, Molly is to be curious where her son went, because evidently she didn't have a good idea where he is. So Molly starts asking around, and so Molly ends up going on to find her son in his closet, and Ralphie's going on and saying how, like, Linoge seems like a good guy to him. Linoge is treating him well within this weird closet. And so Linoge went on and gave Ralphie this sack. And a lot of people are like, I don't think we should open up this sack. Like, considering, like, this guy usually kills people, I don't know if I would go on and touch those rocks. Could you imagine if, like, those rocks were, and many of plethora of people have touched them? What if they all, like, when somebody touched them, like, someone would die, or someone would get, like, sucked into the 10th level of hell or something? Wouldn't that be interesting? Just like, oh yeah, you guys chose to touch these rocks, and how stupid were you? Because, like, touching these rocks was a bad decision. But anyways, so, but anyways, so they find out what had happened to Ralphie. So we have Mike, who is to get up and get a number of people all to the grocery store to just start, like, hey guys, just like, get some meat, get some food, get all the kind of resources that you can, because we're just going to start feeding everybody in town. So we have Mike, that after they start getting all of these preservatives and foods and whatever, come to find out, we have Mike who finds Jane Kingsbury dead. She is frozen, and she's to have this sign that says, give me what I want and I'll go away. So we have another culprit, of which that was killed, of course, by Linoge. Just left out in the frost to die horribly. So we also are to go on and have Hatch and Ferd, who, of course, are going on to blare this horn consistently and try to get anybody to make their way to where they are at. And we end up having Jack, who is looking for his wife. And so, come to find out, Jack looking for his wife, and his wife shows up. And Angela's hair is now to be white, as it wasn't before. And so Angela's to go on and say that her and another person were to be taken by Linoge and to be flying into the sky, and Linoge is to showcase that the town that, of course, or the people that are around this town that Linoge has kind of controlled off, meaning that Linoge is to showcase the people that are to be like in that news report that Linoge did, where like nobody knows that any of these people are dead, and that Linoge is to say that nobody knows what's really going on, so forth. So, and then also Linoge is to drop this guy and have him fall to his death, so that way Angela can showcase like that, like, okay, like this is all real, this is all true, this guy's dead. And so Angela is to go on to live here because Linoge allows it, so that way Angela can know Linoge's power, but then also is to convince all the others that, like, hey, this guy's legit, like, take what he's telling you verbatim, because he has all of this power to snap his fingers and wipe you out. So Angela is to tell Jack that she needs to go on and meet with everybody in town so she can convince them and tell her story. So we go on and we have Angela who meets up with everyone in town, so that way she can tell her story, her side of things. And so everybody seems to like, okay, like this girl seems rational. We also have it that again, like we have Katrina that is kind of telling everybody that it seems that she's fine, that she's even willing to watch over the kids for a minute here. And come to find out, we have Katrina who is trying to, of course, keep the kids busy. And we had guys like Kirk who is trying to bring in games for the kids. So all of a sudden, they have Katrina with all these kids, and the kids start singing I'm a Little Teapot, and all of a sudden another girl comes in to see what Katrina's doing, and Katrina's like, yeah, I guess they all just decided to sing right now. I don't know what was going on. Like, they just all of a sudden decided to do this in unison by themselves. So, all of a sudden, we have behind Katrina the Linoge's cane that appears behind Katrina, and the kids are just weirdly, hey, that looks like a cool dog, let's go and pet it. That's actually a cane, and they didn't think anything about that to be unusual. So these kids start all petting this cane, and they fall over immediately, to the point of, like, Kirk and guys are like, hey, like, something's going on with these kids. And so now we start to have all of these people all rush to all these kids, even if they don't even have like a kid down there. They all rush to get to where these kids are, to the point of somebody falls over and people are trampling all over this guy, and I'm like, oh my god, just start walking and just tripping and falling and just trampling over people because everybody's in a mad panic. Like, hey, wait, some kid did something. Let's trample. Fuck, right? So, uh, so the guy from the Boondock Saints movie, he's toast. He ends up getting freaking walked over. I say the guy from the Boondock Saints because that's the movie that I remember him from. The guy who had in that movie Tourette's, and so so yeah, he ends up getting killed. So they end up going on and checking on the kids, grabbing on the kids, like, oh my god, like, what's going on with my kid? And so we have, I think, Hatch's wife, who is to kind of comb through the kids and is to try to like open up their eyes and try to like touch them and to see if they're like how coherent they are, how it seems they're in a very deep sleep that they can't wake up from. So they're like, okay, all right, whatever this new thing is now. So, and we even had a moment where Pippa was to have her mother just kind of restrain her from this cane that only the kids can see. And Pippa ends up calling her own mother a bitch, and then slapping her, and then trying to get to the cane and touching it, and then she passes out. So, like, yeah, like, these kids, like, desperately wanted to just touch this cane for some bizarre reason, even if it didn't make sense. So, and none of the adults could see this, only the kids could. So, now, we, of course, have Linoge that is to appear and is to immediately try to attack Jonah, who we of course have Linoge stating to Jonah, it's like, well, hey, like, Martha, who ended up dying, everyone else probably grieved her death, but you, like, you were singing Dixie after that whole moment, weren't you? Like, you were going on and just in your body, you were just dancing because you were just finally done with that woman. Like, I bet you were, weren't you, Jonah? And so we have Linoge, who's doing this kind of weird thing with these candles, and Jonah's like having these candles on her, and all of a sudden we have Mike, and we have certain other characters kind of like, hey, Jonah, what's going on? And so Linoge is like, hey, like, keep your distance, or we're going to find out that Jonah is going to be burning pretty brightly. She's going to be becoming her own candle. So we have Linoge that is talking to Mike. And so finally Linoge tells Mike, after talking about how a number of the people are all con artists or the worst people and so on and so forth. And Mike is just like, well, yeah, but they won't give in to you. Like, that's to be the real thing about them. So Linoge ends up saying, like, okay, I'm finally going to tell you what I want. And so I want a kid. So you guys have to go on and for a half an hour, like, just decide once you all get to the town hall what you're going to do. Like, I'll give you 30 minutes, figure it frickin' out. So Linoge ends up leaving, and so we gather up everybody in the town hall, and so we of course have Robbie with his gavel, and just like, okay, everybody, like it seems that everyone is settled. So they end up going on, and at first they just kind of want to hear people out, kind of feel people out. So one person ends up staying up, and he, of course, is to say his piece that he thinks that Lenoche is to be like truthful and honest, and that this guy is to be a very powerful person. We have one other lady that's like, well, are you sure he's all that powerful? And then it's like, well, hey, like, let's put it to a vote. Do you think that this guy is all powerful? And then everyone raises their hands up. So then we, of course, have Mike, who ends up wanting to go on and say his piece about, like, you know what? Like, I don't want to give in to Lenoche. Like, I think it's wrong. I think like we're giving up a child, and that just seems wrong. To give up anyone's child. And Mike wants to like try and back out of it. He wants to try and like walk away from this. And Molly's like, no. Like, if anyone else is gonna give up their kid, so are we. And we have to pitch in, like everyone else is pitching in this town. And Mike is like, no, like, hun, like I thought you would be on my side of things. But Molly's like, no, like I'm with the majority. Like, I'm gonna stick around, and if everyone is going on and doing this, so are we. So Mike even gets to the point where he wants to take his child and walk, and everybody starts grabbing on him, and even to the point of punching him and like forcing him down to the ground. And so he's like, okay, all right, like, nobody freaking touch me, never again. No one touches me in this town. So Mike ends up with like a gash on his eye, and so he ends up taking a towel to it. So we have Lenoge that shows up and immediately goes on and starts pinging away at certain people in this town. We, of course, have Davy, who is the football kid, or the basketball kid. And so Lenoge goes on and is to say, hey, Davy, yeah, I'm going to ping on you again. But you know what, Davy? Your father seems like he's a gambler. He's a thief. He takes a bunch of stuff that is worth a ton of money and then gambles it and loses. God, what does he say? When in vice, say it twice. So we also go on and finally figure out what the heck Johnny Harriman is, because he's the first guy on this cast list. And so come to find out, Johnny had gone on to this mill and wanted to seek revenge because he had lost his job. And so him and Kirk had went on to burn this mill. And so Kirk ends up saying, like, hey, Johnny, you're getting like you're putting me in a lot of trouble. Johnny's like, shut up. Like, yeah. So again, we have Lenoge that's just kind of feeling things out, looking through people. And then, of course, again, Lenoge ends up going on to, of course, look at Jack, as well as guys like Lucien, and is to ping on them because they were all the guys that had gone on to beat up that one eye-patched character. And so Lenoche is like, hey, like, if you feel so bad about going on and beating that person down, like, I have his address. I know where he lives. You can go on and see him again and either finish the job or apologize. What are you going to do? And these guys are going to do nothing. So, but Jack ends up doing a good thing by the end of his life, but still. So, even though the way he ends it just. But, anyways. So, we, of course, go on, and Linoge is picking through a bunch of people. There might have been someone I forgot about, but anyways. Linoge then is to look back at Robbie, and again is to appear as his mother, and is to say the same thing that he did before, like, hey, I'm gonna eat your eyes. I'm gonna go after your eyes, Robbie. Deal with it. Coming after him. Hell's repetition, Bobby. Or Robbie. So, finally, Linoge is to tell everybody that he's sick, and that he's dying, and that he wants a kid, and so you guys have to go on and choose, and then I'll come back. And so they all put it to a vote, and Mike is the only one who is to naysay, but everyone else says, like, okay, we're going to give in to this guy, and majority rules, and so suck it, Mike. We're going to have to go on and take this sack of rocks and figure out what kid is going to go off to, at some point, be Linoge's son. We have, like, Ursula, who ends up making a pretty good assumption that it's like, well, hey, like, technically, like, we're not sacrificing this child to this man. If anything, we're having this guy, like, adopt this kid. And so I think I can live with that, knowing that my kid is going to live. And someone else, I think one guy is to mention, it's like, well, yeah, like, this person is going to really live a long, full life, probably even longer than any number of these people. So, like, they're all thinking, it's like, well, like if this is going to be possibly for the good of that child, then, like, it may not sting too badly. But so we go on, and we also had Mike, who was just thinking, well, like, maybe we should just leave it up to the parents and have them get a vote and no one else. But we have one woman who says, it's like, well, I'm an only parent, and, like, I'm gonna have the whole entire town be in here and have their own say, because everyone has pitched in at some point to help her and her kid. So, figure that is the right thing to do. So, we then go on to have, of course, and I think I might have to pause here. Alright, sorry. So, we now have Linoge, who is to ask everyone in town, it's like, okay, like, as he's to finally come back, he's like, what did you all decided? And we, of course, have Robbie, who's like, well, it's unanimous, like, we've all decided. And so he's like, okay, like, you've made a good decision, and, like, for the best of the people, and so on and so forth, or I was gonna have to kill you all. Because Linoge even showcases that he is to be half here and half in the dream world where all these kids exist, and that he is to showcase that he can go on, and he's holding on to every single one of these kids flying in the air, and at some point Linoge could unhand any number of these kids at any time and kill them off. So they're all thinking, like, well, wherever our kids are, Like, he must have control of them because he is showcasing this to us. And we had, of course, Jack, and we have Angela that, of course, were like running to the window to just kind of look at Buster flying in the sky, and there was nothing that they can do. But Jack had to like do something, and but then he's like, like I can't do anything because floating in the sky in some uh, dream scenario somewhere, I can't do anything about that. It's beyond my abilities. I'm sorry, honey. So let's go on. So Linoge ends up taking the sack and is to start to make certain people of this town pick from this sack. I'm not going to remember every single parent, but I'll try and do my best to remember some portions of them. So, the one that kind of stuck out is we had Jill, who was to be the one girl that decided that she could not go on with this and that she wasn't going to go through with it. And so Linoge ends up like controlling her from running away and forces her to drop her hand, and come to find out her rock was white. It's like, well, luckily for you, but we also had Robbie's wife, who of course was to not want to like open up her hand, and she didn't even want to pick the rock either. She wanted Robbie to do it, and Robbie's like, "No, you do it, because I'm a lazy piece of so you do it." So the girl could not open up her hand, and so Robbie like forces her hand open, and come to find out her hand had a white rock, so she's safe. Huzzah for her! And both Robbie and his wife hug it out, and I'm like, dude, like, you, like, someone's gonna go on and have to like lose their child, so like, yeah, I get it, you're all excited and giddy, but so we go on and we have certain characters who, of course, are to just kind of put their hand out and be like, okay, I'm gonna open mine. We had like Ursula who ends up kind of doing that, and she's like, oh, thank God, mine was white also. And so further and further, it ends up just being uh, Hatch's wife, and it ends up being Molly. Those are the two that are left, and because everyone else's was white. So we have both Hatch's wife and Molly, who opens at the same time. Come to find out, Molly had the black rock, and so Hatch's wife ends up running off to Pippa to hug her. But it's like, yeah, all of this is now over, and Molly's just like you tricked me, and you did this and you did that, and so Molly's like, I don't think I want to give up my child now because I feel tricked. And so all of a sudden, Hatch is grabbing onto Molly. It's like, hey, we made this decision. We can't go back on it now. And Molly is trying to tell Mike to go on and do something. But of course, Mike, who is to just be like held down, like he can't do anything either. And so Mike or Linoge is to go on and get Ralphie and is to take him. And so again, Molly's just so upset that she feels tricked. And we of course have Linoge that turns to Molly. It's like, well, maybe I did trick you. Maybe I didn't. Who cares? Like, I was going to pick a child anyways. So it had to have been the one out of the one couple that did not want to give in to Linoge, and that of course was Mike. It's like, yeah, I'm definitely gonna take his son, the one that least wanted this to happen. So Ralphie and Linoge starts to float on into the sky, and so Mike is to now try to run off to tell Linoge that he'll give him whatever he wants as long as he can get his son back. And Linoge is just like, well, all I wanted was your son. Like, I'm just gonna go off. So now the aftermath of all this. So we go on to, of course, Mike is to have hung on to Maine and his job and whatever for as long as he could, but it seems that Mike and Molly have really grown further and further apart. To the point where now Molly's in counseling with some counselor, and Molly's mentioned how they haven't made love in a while since the whole storm, and that Molly's realizing that Mike at some point is going to leave her. Like, she has this feeling, and come to find out, Mike is going to leave her. He's going to go on a ferry and just never come back. So Hatch is to want to stop Mike from leaving town, and it's to say to Mike, it's like, well, hey, whenever you want to come back and be constable again, like the job is yours. And Mike is like, no, I'm done. So we have Hatch who ends up telling Mike, it's like, well, like, for what it's worth, like I've been losing sleep over it, and like I think that we made a bad decision. And Mike is like, well, yeah, like that's great and all that you're losing sleep over it. Like, I could really not give a shit. Because Mike is to go on and turn to Hatch and say, it's like, well, like, that's too bad that you and your wife are losing sleep. And it seems that Hatch is to have his wife, who is to consistently take these tranquilizers, to where she might be addicted to them. And so Mike is like, yeah, that's bad that you've lost so much sleep over this decision. But if you've ever to have lost sleep, you can go into your daughter's room and watch her sleep anytime you want to. Me, I don't have that ability. I cannot do that. Now that you guys have gone on and decided what you have decided, and now I have to live with that. So I decided to live with that elsewhere. So goodbye. So Mike goes on this ferry and he goes off. So come to find out, Mike has been delivered these newspaper clippings after he left, and so come to find out there is some aftermathy stuff where we found out at some point one of the women was to go on this boat one night, and she is carving Croatoan on this boat, and she, I guess, ended up drowning herself in the water and dying. And like, people kind of thought it was suspicious that this girl was deciding to want to do this, but they're just like, hey, just wear a life jacket, okay? But they didn't stop her. So come to find out, we had Jack. Jack at some point was to leave his wife, and he was found in a tub, dead, because he had put a bag over his head. But when they found him, he had this eye patch, and Jack was to leave uh, anything that he owned, his last will and testament, was to finally go on and give everything that he owned to the kid that he ended up hurting before, who had that eye patch. And so I was like, oh wow, that's kind of nice. It's kind of awful the way he died, but like at least he finally did something good in the end. So we also come to find out that Hatch and Molly had gotten married, and so supposedly Mike was given the newspaper clipping of that of Molly getting remarried, and so it seems we had Mike. Mike went on and left Molly with the grocery store, with everything, bank account, so on and so forth. Mike just wanted the car, and he just wanted a peace of mind. So Mike goes on to get away as far away as possible from uh, the town he was in before. And so Mike then is to continue his education, to get certain law degrees and so on and so forth. So, come to find out, Mike is to become a federal officer, which is kind of interesting. That this guy is to, like, become a better cop than he was before. So, all of a sudden, we have Mike and his partner working on a case, and so all of a sudden we have Mike, who comes from out of this location and is to hear these two characters whistling or humming or something, I'm a Little Teapot. And so Mike all of a sudden turns and is to realize that he ends up seeing Linoge and a older version of Ralphie. And we have Ralphie, who is to go on like and then he ends up kind of walking off. And so Mike, in his head, is to think whether or not he should have gone on and told Molly about that moment where he re-saw Linoge and their son again. But then he's like, well, like, was it a bad thing to do? Was it not a bad thing to do? I don't know. And so by the end of this, we have Molly, who's kind of looking at all the people that they lost, and Molly is to mention that Ralph was to be one of them, as Ralph had gone on to have just been lost in that storm, and that's the story that she tells people, why that he is no longer alive. So, with that said, I think that covers most of what happens for this episode. Let me know in the comments below if there's something that I forgot about. There probably was some certain details about certain characters I forgot about, because that's bound to happen. But we also had like Mike talking about something that he ended up saying in like the beginning of this, and how like he was talking about how people are to like pay what they're owed or pay what they have to, and like that was the same thing that he said in the beginning of this, and he says at the end of it, and kind of like a checks and balances kind of thing of like, when really thinking about it, also like that could be like the good and evil that are within inside all of us, and maybe that's the reason why he left with that kind of line, is that like, well, hey, like if you've done a lot of bad, like try to balance it with a lot of good, and like at some point hopefully it'll even out at the end. So yeah, so with that said, I'm just going to try and get out of here. Let me know in the comments below how you felt about Storm of the Century, whether you like this show, whether you hated the show, because there's those people too that just are like, yeah, I hated the show. I thought it was stupid. I thought it was boring. I thought it was this. It was far too long for me. Blah, 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 blah. But anyways, now I'm just finally done with this, so I can go on into other things. So that's what I'm going to focus on next. So with that said, I'm going to just get out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, everybody. I'm just kind of concerned if I always had this like kind of moment where I'm like, did I forget something? But I feel good enough about it. I feel that I've finished. So goodbye, everybody. Bye.